We are recording.
Very good. Do we have everybody back? Do we need to do another roll call? So Steph, when you get a chance, could you do another roll call if people need a couple of minutes? We'll...
Yeah. So roll call.
Lori, I'm here.
Julie.
Here.
Annie.
Here. Ed.
Here.
Kathy.
Here.
And Gary.
Here.
And do we have Owen by chance? I don't see him.
No one yet.
Okay.
Hey, I guess we are back in order. So our next order of business here, Chad, are you going to give us the budget report?
I can do that. Now, bear in mind, I'm not Paul. So my answers to questions may be somewhat limited. However, the main points to address here are that, number one, we are very early in the biennium reporting process. Our income does not come in evenly. There's a lot of spring babies that have renewal dates that are outside of the first quarter. So as far as our renewal incomes go, it's kind of a bell curve. And we're at the short end of the bell curve as of right now. Secondary to that, okay. So as far as where we're at in the biennium right now, also considering the fact that our income comes in at an inconsistent rate and AMCs and all of those make up a big chunk of that. We are showing a minor deficit at present. On paper, it looks like $64,000. However, of that $64,000, $19,600 is covered by a federal grant, which is basically a pass-through. It's a zero sum for us. We get, this is related to our compliance and enforcement support folks. That is funded by the appraisal subcommittee grant. So although it looks like a negative line item, it's actually a zero, essentially. So 19 grand is coming out of the grant. An additional large chunk at 26K is the federal registry fees, which are, again, another pass-through for us. We collect the money on behalf of the appraisal subcommittee, transmit it to them so that the appraisers can be included on that national registry. So our actual deficit as of right now, and again, this could change in a month, but as of right now, we're at December 31st of 2025, our actual shortfall is closer to about 18,000. Now that's not, it's still $18,000, but in the grand scheme of things, this time last year, we were talking about a $300,000 deficit. So a lot of the changes that Paul and I have made, not filling that other position, that's made a mass. So as far as that 64,000, I'm sorry, that was projected. If the numbers don't change by the end of the biennium, as of right now, if we don't change fees, our licensing stays the same, our population stays the same, at the end of the biennium, we will be negative 64,000, right? But again, as of right now, a portion of that is the grant situation that's a basically covered expense and the ASC pass through. So the numbers right now are actually looking a little more positive than we had originally planned. Our revenues, as a matter of fact, for quarter one, were just slightly higher than we projected. So that means that we've had some additional people coming into the profession that we hadn't planned for. We generally anticipate that we're going to lose some and gain some with a net. Right now, we're anticipating a net loss quarter by quarter by quarter. So the budget numbers are actually a lot more positive than they were at the October meeting. Let's see here. Bear with me while I find my place, folks. Sorry. So real numbers as of right now, total income actual as of December 2025, December 31st, is $429.26. Our actual expenses right now, expended to date, so same number as of December 31st. Total personal services, 340,000, and total other office-related services and supplies, subscriptions, things like that is 140. So there is a deficit showing, but it's not remotely as bad as it could have or would have been potentially previously. So overall, I guess the key points are that we are very early in the biennium. We are going to continue keeping an eye on those expenses. reducing things where we can. We're about to drop, as you all can see, we're on Teams meeting right now. Historically, we've been paying for an entirely separate meeting software, GoToMeeting. That's not a massive thousands of dollars expense, but that's another one that's going to drop off essentially as of the end of this meeting here. I'm just not going to pay our bill for the GoToMeeting stuff. So minor little changes here and there are going to continue, and we're going to keep examining what do we need versus what do we have and what we're working with. And again, if you all consider the fee raising issue potentially to be effective at some point down the line, maybe at the start of the midpoint of this biennium, these numbers are going to continue to look better. And as of right now, you can confirm this with Paul if you want, but I don't believe we've touched any of our reserve as of yet.
Excellent.
Yeah. And essentially, I think that covers my portion of the budget report, unless you guys have questions for me that I can try and answer.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Well, hearing none, would you like to move on into the licensing and AMC report?
I would. Let's see here.
I just made those graphs for you, just so you had a visualization. I can
This is-
send those to you in for
Ooh,
future
that may
meetings.
be handy. Yeah, as far as talking points goes. And related to our licensing summary, these numbers were run as of January 2nd, just because December 31st was New Year's Eve. And so this last quarter, the numbers were run slightly after the quarter ended. As of January 2nd, 2026, we have 607 active certified general appraisers, 554 active certified residential appraisers, and 107 state licensed active appraisers. We can see that state licensing number on this budget report or on this licensing report has consistently declined since about 2022. And I think that has to do a lot with users of appraisals preferring that certified residential licensure level, just because it's a little bit of an added security blanket in terms of demonstrated skills and competency and qualifications and stuff. So our total active licensed population right now is 1,268. That is down from 330 this time last year. In would be essentially the end of 2024. We had 1,330. So there is a decline. That's about 40. All right, that's 30. Yeah, so 62 appraisers that we've lost over the last 12 months. Net loss, right? We've picked some up, we've lost some, but the net loss is about 38 or 6. Yeah. Inactive appraisers. As of January 2nd, we have 20 inactive certified general appraisers, 26 inactive certified residential appraisers, and 10 inactive state licensed appraisers, for a total inactive appraiser population of 56. Now that number has also declined a bit since in years prior, but has remained relatively stable for about the last 2 years. In 2023, we had a huge number of inactive appraisers at 84. Not sure what the cause of that was, but the inactive population has stayed pretty steady for the last 2 years or so. Assistants, appraiser assistants. We currently have 48 registered appraiser assistants at some point in their licensing journey. That number is a dramatic decline if you're looking at the same licensing report that I am. We ended 2020 with 117 registered assistants. 2021, we had 130 at the time of reporting, 139 in 2022. And then that number dropped a little in 23 to 125. Following that, for the last 2 years, you can see a sharp drop off. 71 as of reporting time last year, down to 48 right now. I have to hopefully make the assumption that some of that is due to the difficulty with folks finding a supervisor and opting instead to go through the practical applications of real estate appraisal. I know of at least a couple, while we were in the process of getting the practical applications adopted, that Washington had allowed it. And so they went up there first and reciprocated back in. So that circumstance that they were talking about with the harmonization folks, that has happened with Oregon appraisers. So that may be at least in part, some of the reason for that decline in assistant numbers.
Are we tracking that at all?
The Perea.
Yeah, who who is getting their licensing through?
Through Perea. We have, as of right now,
I am unsure.
okay. So that's a thing that we'll talk about after the meeting is how to put that in place, because that's going to be critical in terms of knowing the program's success. And in particular, how many appraisers have gone through the Perea program, gotten licensed and not gotten in trouble for the first, say, 2 years or whatever. So, right, starting to build some of those metrics now that we have that program in place, knowing its efficacy is going to be important too.
Right.
Let's see.
AMCs.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so this is an okay number. We have stayed stable essentially for the last year, 2 years at 101 registered appraisal management companies operating in the state. That number has kind of wobbled and declined and increased since 2020 to now. It jumped up to 120 AMCs in 2021, stayed relatively stable and declined to 119 in 22. We saw a pretty sharp decline in 23 to 108, and then I would call 108 to 101 as a nominal change, really.
Probably those AMCs going out of business.
Right, or being bought up by neighbors. Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. Some of it's probably due to, how much work is out there and all of those things. But to your point, yeah, I think that's just the nature of business is that.
It'd be interesting to see if their name's switching, and that would be my analysis.
Right.
Yeah.
Annie has it.
Oh, great. Thanks. Annie, go ahead.
Hi. Oh, I wasn't sure. I heard this when Lori was speaking, but are we going to add the number in the Perea program to this licensing summary data report at some point?
We can, yeah. Once we've got those numbers to report, that can become a part of this licensing.
Okay, good. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Registered AMCs, and that generally covers that licensing report. I've got some additional updates for you guys during the administrator's report. I wanted to update you on our audit activities and some of that stuff, but that can wait. Yeah, are there any other questions on the licensing report?
Okay, hearing none. Do you want to move on to enforcement?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And now these numbers are reported for the last quarter. So the cutoff was December 31st, 2025. Last quarter, the board closed 18 cases. And I think at the last board meeting, I had a conversation about during the last quarter, we had closed something like 27. So a lot of that has to do with the assistance that we've gotten from our compliance and enforcement folks over at Wallet Solutions. That's going to be an ebb and flow process because as they finish things, I then have to review those things or delegate it to an investigator to review their recommendations because they're assisting in the process. They're not taking it over. This is still very much a board enforcement process. We're just getting extra eyes on the thing because that analysis, that research takes significant time. And if we can cut that out of our staff cost, now we've increased our momentum, right? So these numbers are a little lower than the October numbers. Part of that is also due to the holiday season. That tends to grind to a halt, at least somewhat, for the last couple of weeks, if not the last 3 weeks of the year. So as of December 31st, for the last quarter, we closed 18 cases. As of December 31st, and this is another number that I'm getting very proud of. We're getting into the section of the report that I'm proud of. We have 52 total open active investigative cases right now. A number of those are the beyond 1 year old cases, and that was we'll get to that in a second. But of the open 52 cases that we have, 4 are new allegations that are being vetted, that we've received the allegations and they're in some stage of either an investigator reviewing or our compliance folks reviewing once we've determined that it's within our jurisdiction and it is an issue that we would enforce or that we have authority over. That is another side of the process that they're helping us with is that initial vetting to determine, is there anything worth looking at here or should we just close the case? So 4 of those are being vetted. 41 of our allegations are pending investigation or assignment to an investigator. So they are yet to be, they've been vetted, they've been opened, the appraiser's been notified, we've received the documentation we need, and now it's on us to complete that process on the investigative side. We have 2 investigations currently in process, not counting the 2 that will be going to the February Enforcement Oversight Committee. And those, I believe, are complete and just basically waiting through the process. We have notification periods and response periods for appraisers, so we keep consistent so that we're evenly enforcing the rules. And the last number here in the case status is that we have 3 before you folks today that are pending board approval, and following the meeting will be closed in one, assuming that the settlements or the actions are approved, those 3 cases will be closed at the end of this meeting. Now, the number of cases over 1 year old, this has been steadily declining. I'm hoping to see it decline even faster, but I also understand that people need to sleep.
Dan, if you need to sleep.
They make supplements for that. So of our 42 cases that are over a year old, 35 are still pending investigation. So they're in some stage of either ready to be investigated next or are down the line. And again, we investigate unless there's a compelling reason to jump something to the front of the line, like public safety. Those cases are investigated in chronological order. Things that would elevate it beyond, taking it out of line chronologically, so to speak, would be allegations of assault or burning houses down to feel joy, or practicing without a license and repeated practicing without a license. Those things that really affect the public trust and or the health and safety. So as of right now, 35 are pending investigation, 2 are in process. Both of the cases that are going toward the February Enforcement Committee are among those over a year old. So the 2 more of those will drop off theoretically after the board completes its process on the 2 that are going to the Enforcement Committee. And again, the 3 cases before you folks today for approval or consideration are of those cases that are over a year old, because that is generally where we're putting most of our effort. Again, unless there's a compelling reason that we need to bump somebody to the front of the line, we're focusing on that backlog and getting that reduced down to inside 12 months for our case inventory. And other than questions, that does conclude my license or the enforcement report. Are there any questions on this enforcement activity?
Chad, a quick question just for me to better understand. You got 3 cases that are going to be reviewed today, and out of those 3 cases, there's 2 appraisers, right?
Correct, yes.
So I guess to get a better idea, how many appraisers, or do you know that number, or how many cases that involve?
Okay. So cases that involve cases. That is actually a great question, and my answer might not relate to the answer you're looking for. But as far as cases, appraisers with more than 1 case, when we see that, what we're doing now is, if there's a reasonable connection between the alleged issues that happened in those multiple cases, like hypothetically, maybe we have somebody that's got 3 cases pending. 1 came in 2023 and 2 came in 2024, or 1 came in 2025. If there's a connection between either the intended use, the intended user, the issues that we potentially see in those cases that need investigation, in order to dispose of the cases in a more timely manner, and really secondarily, but also really just as important, to give the appraiser the information they need to keep those things from happening again, what we're doing is we're doing what we call multi-case analysis, meaning that we'll look at case A, B, and C, and if there are parallels and things that can be addressed at the same time, those are being addressed in one compliance report and moving through the system a little more efficiently. But as far as, yes, I can tell you the number of appraisers that have more than 1 case. Yeah, I can't tell you that right now because that would require database search and stuff. But we do have a few that have multiple, meaning more than 1, whether it's 2 or more. I don't know of anybody that's got more than 2 pending at the same time. That would be an eyebrow. Maybe there's 1 or 2 out there that have 3 cases. Another thing to consider is that the Fannie Mae Loan Quality Center complaints. They will batch things together. They look at those files. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but the way they come in, it seems like they're picking jurisdictions and running through a number of reports at the same time. So if they've got Joe Blow did an appraisal that they've got questions on, or maybe they've identified subjective language, they will then look and see, okay, does Joe Blow have any other things that were, oh, no, here's another one with subjective language. And here's, and it doesn't necessarily, the filing of that complaint doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means that they brought it to our attention. So some of those multi-case situations may be things that aren't even necessarily USPAP or board enforcement issues, but that we want to communicate with the licensee on and just say, hey, your best practice. That may be the end result of a case, is that we don't feel that we need to go all the way to an investigation and a board action or a settlement. And we can maybe address it a little more proactively if it's not an outright violation, and just have an informal conversation or issue a letter of counsel. That would be board approved. But I've also been administratively looking at things. And in the case where there really is no clear violation, but to avoid a potential future violation, the appraiser needs to be aware of something, I'll issue them a communication directly and say, hey, we are closing this case, but XYZ, right? And that's in the hope that we can stem these things from continuing to come in at a volume. And if we've all got the knowledge we need, you don't know what you don't know until someone tells you what you don't know. And that's kind of the problem I'm trying to solve informally on my end when I can.
That's the job.
I can accurately answer. We currently have 5 appraisers that only have 2 open cases against them. There's nobody who has more than 2.
Two.
But there is 5.
That's a reasonably good number.
Great.
But out of 42, we can be down to 32 at that point.
Right.
So like the 5.
Are we still seeing the Fannie Mae tips coming in? Or,
Not at the same volume as it was, say, immediately following the PAVE report.
right?
That has slowed somewhat. But they do still come in, because there are still, whether or not, it's related to language in the report that's subjective, or, whatever the target was at the time. Appraisers are always making mistakes, because we're all human, right? So there's always going to be some level of loan quality center allegation reports, right? It's an allegation until there's evidence or a definitive answer that something bad happened, then it becomes a complaint. But as far as the allegations go, yes, we're still seeing, not even remotely at the same volume, but we are still seeing, and we've got some from 2024 and a couple from this year. But it does look like they're going, because they have limited staff, right? They're not made of people over there. So they've got a limited number of folks that can look at these things. And I think for their efficiency's sake, they're looking at state by state by state, or maybe it's region by region, and then moving on to the Midwest, and then to the East Coast. And then, now it's January, we're going to move back to the West Coast and do California, Washington, Oregon, right? So yeah, those numbers have declined somewhat. And I think maybe that has partially to do with some of the feedback they've been getting from regulators. Bring things to our attention, but please don't try fire in an empty theater. There's no reason to do that, right? So, but yes, they are still sending us complaints.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, then we shall move on to the approval of board orders. So I would entertain a motion to approve case number 21-2493 with the action dismissed with counsel.
One quick comment on that. I believe, Dan, is the first letter of counsel that involves 2 separate cases that were identified as having parallels. I think that is the case. So we've got those 2 case numbers there on the letter of counsel. Those are entwined in one.
2560.
So do we want to approve them together, or?
Might as well. Yeah.
Okay, well then I will amend my statement that I entertain a motion to approve case numbers 21-2493 and 23-2560 with the action taken at dismiss with counsel.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Okay, hearing none. Stephanie, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Lori,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Gary.
Yes.
Passes. Moving on, I would entertain a motion to approve case number 24-2612, and that resulted in a civil penalty with education.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay. Motion in a second. Do we have any discussion on this
I
one?
have a question on it. In the letter, it does say the civil penalty was to be paid by January 5th. but the letter was not signed until January 6th by the appraiser.
Mhm.
Was the stipulation taken care of? Did he pay the penalty by the date?
A day late, but yes, and we thought rather than split hairs,
Okay.
it got taken care of. But yes, as far as the appraiser's obligations when they submitted that signed order, yes, that, to my knowledge, it's
It's
been.
been covered.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, staff?
Lori,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Gary.
Yes.
Hey, we're moving right along here. With regard to the chair's report, the only thing I wanted to mention, I think we've all been made aware of it by Pete and crew. The AQB has issued some proposed criteria changes. Response or a comment due on that by, was it March 3rd? Yeah, by March 3rd. So Chad, I imagine we'll probably want to get together and provide some comments. So if folks have an opportunity to kind of read through that, I know it's kind of a slog. I think it's 138 pages or 164 pages or something like that. But it's worthy of us taking a look at. And I don't think that there's anything really objectionable about it, but it would require some changes to staff procedure with, potential examination occurring at times other than
Right.
the way that,
Yeah.
and probably some rule changes, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, so that's on board. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. The material is in the packet. It's also available on the website. So how about if we move on? And Chad, if you wanna give us your administrator's report, that would be
Yes.
wonderful.
Absolutely. Let me get down into the right section here. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to update you all on was the activity, the staff activities or for our licensure, the 2025 audits and number of new licenses issued. So we completed, and this is partially due to the drop off in applications. We've seen higher numbers in previous years. Completed 15 licensing audits in 2025, 12 of whom were approved and 3 were not. And I believe at some point, well, yeah, a couple of them have not reapplied, but I know that at least one of the people that were not approved, it was due to the audit process. They didn't pass. They resubmitted an application and then were subsequently made changes to the process, their appraisal process based on the audit feedback, subsequently reapplied and passed that next round of audits. 7 supervisor audits were completed in 2025. 5 of those were approved, 2 were not. And that is, when we audit for a supervisor endorsement, we're not looking for minimum competence, right? That's what we're looking for to say, I'm eligible to take the test and I'm not a danger to myself or others. That's for licensure. When you're talking about becoming a supervisor, you're not saying I'm minimally competent. You're saying I know enough about this subject and I'm confident enough in my knowledge that I want to teach what I know to someone else. Right. So the lens is a little bit different. Both of them are non-consequential as far as if we see things wrong in an audit, we're not immediately going to go after somebody's license or, make their lives impossible. We want those audits to be a learning, educational, informative process. And unless we see something drastically horrible, the general policy is that we don't then create a case out of that.
That would really discourage folks from.
It absolutely would. Let's see. Okay, total new licenses issued in 2025. We issued 67 new unique credentials,
Nice.
some of which were based on, as you can see with the numbers, the math says that 12 of those were from our licensing process, which means that 55 of our new 67 appraisers were reciprocal in 2025. Let's see. Oh, all 12 of the applicants that passed the audit passed their exams.
Great.
Any questions on our audit activity, audit and licensure?
Good news.
Moving on then, we have the update on our compliance and enforcement support project. And I won't take a huge amount of time here. It's just basic numbers. As I said a few minutes ago, momentum slowed down just a little bit between Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holiday season. It does tend to have that effect as we try to coordinate everybody's schedules. It's a little bit like, I use the phrase herding kittens, right? It's almost an impossible task around that time of year to get everybody in the same place at the same time. But that being said, Wallet Consultants assisted us with 45 case files in 2025. Now, remember, the initial part of this grant process and getting this program in place was really bureaucratic in nature. It was writing the policy. It was making sure that we have accounting procedures in place that meet federal standards, understanding how the payment management system works, understanding the grant process with the ASC. So a lot of that very front end stuff delayed our actual functional program until about March of last year is when we really, Josh and I started getting really going and having lots of dialogue and back and forth. And that was an iterative process in itself to begin with. But now that we know what they're about and they understand what we want, a lot of that stuff is moving faster. It's actually on me at this point. I think they're still working on seven cases that I gave them toward the end of last year. So now it's about time to check in and see where those are at and give a new batch. So they assisted us again between March and December with 45 case files. 40 of the files that they helped us with were the older cases that are beyond 12 months old. They did assist us with vetting 5 new cases where cases came in and either Dan or I looked at them and said, yes, this is under our statutory authority. Now, tell us if there's anything actionable or if there's anything even that we need to look into. And they're making recommendations to staff. It's then on staff to decide whether or not we're taking those recommendations or, no, you know what, we disagree and we're going to do our process. That's really the only way that I can see this moving with efficiency and consistency. And so that, again, the board retains its existing process and we're not reinventing everything just because now we've got some consultants on board. So it has made a difference in terms of our overall output and the efficiency. So 5 of the new cases that were vetted, I think 4 of them were opened and are pending investigation because, again, those are 2025 and we're not quite at that year of investigation yet. They did also assist us with 2 licensing audits and are going to be working on an additional 2 here in the near future. And I waited to start that part of their involvement until we kind of understood each other, right? They know what Oregon statutes are, how we interpret and enforce those things, so that we weren't creating another barrier for new licensees because of a misunderstanding of, well, here's how the other state that we worked with did it, right? I wanted to have that relationship solidified before I started having them making decisions on our licensing or making recommendations. It's still my decision or the investigator's decision on an audit. But they've assisted us with audits and are going to continue to do so now moving forward. So that should actually reduce some of that audit wait time. We've been relatively good for the last quarter. I think most of our audits were completed within or below 90 days. There were a few that sometimes if they don't pass the first one, we'll give them feedback, allow them to make changes and continue on in the process. And while that's helpful for them, it does elongate the factual numbers as far as, well, we looked at their files 2 weeks after they submitted them, but midstream, we communicated some issues and then they waited.
So you're not
month and a
asking
half
to resend their application and reapply?
Unless they don't pass after 3 attempts. It's really essentially, it's not 3 strikes, you're out. It's 3 strikes and you get another at-bat. But you have to ask for the additional at-bat, right? And it's just so that we can give them feedback. And again, making it an educational process, sometimes that just takes more time. It's rare that people pass on the very first file that we look at, but we generally don't have people that need to apply more than twice because that gives 3 attempts at looking at, that's 6 different files potentially. And really only 1 needs to pass. You only need to demonstrate that you know this stuff once. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they are currently working on an additional 9 cases for us. That's we'll be looking into where that stuff is at. And once that comes in, I'll collate that information and make a determination on whether or not we're going to close those cases or do something other than a full investigation, or if it warrants our full time and attention as a staff and yours as a board. Let's see. Oh, this is just kind of as an aside back to our enforcement report. The 54 cases that we closed last year is a 3-year high. And it kind of did this a little bit for a year or two. But the 2025 case closure rate of 54 is 38% higher than 2024. And I think because of just the timing and everything else, I think we can attribute at least some of that to our compliance consultants assisting us and shortening some of our processes, right? Without degrading the quality of that investigation. We're keeping those steps, we're just delegating it elsewhere. And then that information comes back and we're able to incorporate that.
So they are going out faster than they're coming in.
It would appear that way, at least for the time being, yes.
Jen, how many cases was it last year?
Closed, 54 cases over 12 months.
Right at the end of the tunnel.
If we can keep that up, and again, that progress is going to do this as, I mean, some of those cases were very straightforward and simple and just required some attention and a closure. Some of those were very involved and required a 1.5 month long investigation. So it's just going to depend on where we're at in the stack, how long that takes. So it's anticipated that we're going to see some of that variable. You know, like next quarter, we might report that we were able to deal with 30 cases, or it might be 10. Or, you know, it's just, we don't know that until we get there. But it would be nice if everything was a straight, even line, the median. But we don't get medians very often in real life.
So are there any other questions on the enforcement support project? Okay, hearing none. Think you have a reminder for us, Chad?
Oh, I do. Yes. Thank you. And this is everybody's favorite time of year. You get to hear me say, remember to take your workday education. We have those mandatory training classes and there may be more this year than just the 2. I believe historically it's been preventing discrimination and harassment in the workplace. And we all need a reminder of that every 12 months or so. That's what we've been mandated. And the other one that is equally as critical is the information security protocol stuff. Being aware of phishing and all of it. It's those workday modules where it's basically explaining how not to compromise the integrity of the database and the agency and the network. Additional to that, there might be some other separate, they're calling them learning worklets. I'll have to kind of navigate that with the folks at Workday and figure out what do you want us to do and what do we have to do? Because, right, you all don't have time to be taking a class every week on a new topic, right?
And those are assigned by?
They are, I don't know how, as far as within that Workday system, I think it's an automatic, if you haven't done it, they were, at last conversation, they were going to be sending automated reminders out to board members and state employees as of a certain date that hadn't completed whatever the 2 or 3 required trainings were. You were supposed to get reminders. If nobody got reminders, it either means that you all did everything way ahead of schedule or that hasn't been implemented.
Yeah, because Gary had trouble getting in. Yeah.
Oh, right. First saying that, that's when I.
Gotcha.
And yet I got the reminder that I had already done it.
Got it.
So-
Okay. I don't know. I wish I could
But I
have
think
clarity on it.
once you
So-
log in, if it's not there, then you have
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Right, and if there's any issues as you log in with navigating to the learning section of Workday, I'm not a Workday expert, but I've played around enough in there that I could be dangerous. But I'm happy to offer whatever help I can as far as once you're logged into your Workday profile, how do I get to the education section? And then once I'm there, how do I know what I'm actually required to take versus, you know, what are there's a litany of courses in there.
And
Not all
Gary,
of them are
Gary and I can attest to the fact that if you get a new device, you're gonna need
Yeah.
Chad's help too.
And if Chad's not available, I'm great at navigating. So
Excellent, that's good to know. That's very, very good to know. So, anything else on that?
On the education stuff, the trainings, not really. Just keep in mind that those courses, there's at least 2 that are required every year. Once you've taken it a couple of times, it should look very familiar. And I did mine. I usually do mine in like February, March, April, something like that. And the last time I took the same course for the 5th year in a row, They budget like 45 minutes of time. I think I finished it in 20. So it's, you know, it's really, a lot of it should be review, and some of it is really common sense. If you know, have any intelligence and social etiquette. A lot of this stuff is common sense, but they want us to know it for sure.
Nice. Okay, well, I guess we could take this opportunity if anybody has anything, any final words, any parting words, parting gifts. If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Did you see Scott's comment there? As the
No,
only provider of Perea for now, I can endeavor to provide Chad with the names of the folks in AI Perea who have indicated they want to become licensed.
excellent.
That would be
Thank
wonderful,
you so
Scott,
much,
yes.
Scott. That's great news.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for seeing that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, well, do I have
a
a
motion
motion to adjourn?
to adjourn. That was a, with an exclamation point, not a question. No,
I'm wrong.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Abby. Steph?
Lori,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Gary.
Okay, meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Annie.